These are the most controversial smartphone cameras in the market, but today I'm going to clear everything for you. So welcome to the most extreme OnePlus 15 camera test on the planet. With the all-new Oxygen OS update, including new camera fixes, comparison with other especially camera-focused flagships, where the 15 performs better, where it performs worse, and even a deep dive into the shooting experience to give you the very first-hand feel. By the end of this video, you will know exactly if you can live with these or not. Let's start with the elephant that's missing in the room, the Hasselblad processing, and how different it is from OnePlus's Detail Max engine. Oh, by the way, I'm currently shooting on the OnePlus 15 as well as the Oppo X9 for the entirety of this video. So watch till the end to find out which one has got better battery efficiency as well as thermal performance. First, watch these two zoomed videos taken on two of the latest top-of-the-line flagship series. Can you guess which one is the OnePlus? Okay, how about this one? How about now? What about in this comparison? In all of the videos, the left ones are from the OnePlus 50, whereas on the right is the output from the very camera-centric Oppo X9. From a hardware perspective, it just does not make any sense. The X9 has got a slightly larger Sony Lightyear sensor, lower f-stop, and the Hasselblad processing, so it should perform better. But it does not. The Detail Max engine on the OnePlus is now doing a seriously good job. In every single video at max zoom, it is squeezing out more details than the X9. OnePlus has got a very good, what I call, texture engine. It applies some sort of texture to digital zooms. The X9 has also got one, but the style seems to be way softer. There is also a weird camera issue on the X9 which stops all the processing at the max 18x zoom. It stays on till the very last 17.9x. And again, this one is running the latest ColorOS with all the camera fixes at the highest bitrate. So the fix is still pending. Anyway, max zoom videos are the biggest strength on the OnePlus cameras, but what about the images? I'll say the exact same thing, but I would like to talk about the image taking process. Both the BBK phones need stronger stability and shake resistance for such extreme zooms, else it is very difficult to follow the subject. I like the stability way more on my Xiaomi, and forget about moving subjects, I found it more difficult to capture still subjects beyond 50x. Notice how more stable the experience is on the Xiaomi. Oh, I'm putting the Xiaomi 15 at the far right wherever possible because it has been my secondary phone since day one. But I won't be commenting much because it is also an older generation flagship, so not really fair for Xiaomi. But going back to the processing, which is the main chapter we are in, sitting at home and doing this will capture incredible details. Like every pixel on the screen is visible. It is like a macro shot, but taken from far away. But outside, the air quality is seldom as good as indoors. So like with fog, mist, or just poor air quality, I'll have to say both the phones create very cartoonish looking images, which means they lack depth. And there are very weird outlines, and that is not just limited to very far away scenes. Even in compositions where the subject is way closer to the camera, the images still look weird and cartoonish. Realistically, I will never push any of these phones beyond 20x. The 120x zoom is quite a bit of a stretch, especially when the subject is very far away. But I'll say, OnePlus now looks better in these scenes. It is impossible for the sensors themselves to capture anything, so a large chunk of the details in these images are just AI guesswork, but OnePlus does better in guessing. It is more confident. It applied a texture in the trees in the background here, and again, better texturing in the bricks, which by the way is taken in a much clearer scene. But sometimes it is also just confidently wrong, like look at these areas. And talking about wrong, let me tell you exactly where the camera is going to limit you, and that is under very harsh scenes. Look at this image. It looks really bad. The pictures still have that saturation boost, very noticeable, where there is too much green or red in the scene. The over-sharpening is still there, noticeable at the edges of elements in the shot, and there is also some sort of enhancement processing even at normal shots, which leads to impressive clarity in some pictures, but also weird textures, especially in the shadows or dark areas. And talking about shadows, OnePlus is very careful with them. It produces very well-lit images, keeping both the shadows as well as the highlights intact. It is especially helpful for human subjects under harsh lighting. The lower contrast makes you look better, but that again leads to making the weird textures more visible. Most of the issues I mentioned only become noticeable when you start doing a lot of pixel peeping. You need to get crazy with the zoom, which honestly will reveal flaws in any smartphone camera. Talking about flaws, is the camera hardware on the OnePlus actually capable? This is a bit hard to find out, and you will know exactly why very soon. Shooting at the max resolution on ultra-wide, it is not even a competition. The X9 looks way better than OnePlus. Just like I had mentioned in the last video, this phone has the best ultra-wide camera I have ever used. This thing looks so good. And the same thing goes for the main camera. Look at the cracks, the texture of the concrete, the rope hanging down from here, or even the general visibility inside the shadows. Or even in this image, the details of the bark of the tree, the dry small leaves, or even... never mind. The telephoto lens is a bit weird. In the first shot, the OnePlus is definitely a tad bit more clear than X9. Notice the cracks and everything. But if we compare this to a different scene, the X9 actually performs better. There are so many more details in the foreground as well as in the background, and I noticed this especially on elements that are far away across all the cameras. Like the X9 is really good at extracting details very clearly, but it is also not just sensor clarity but rather some sort of processing, as evident from these ultra-wide shots of the window grille compared to the same shots taken on the telephoto. It clearly looks very strange. Like if you compare the OnePlus, it does not have that much amount of detail, yes, but it does not look this strange. I could not turn it off, but I did find it to be the strongest in the Hasselblad high-res mode. Both the phones have a new high-resolution mode in the formats, and it is turned on by default. A viewer of this channel asked me repeatedly to showcase this, so here are some image samples shot at standard as well as high resolution. The interesting thing is, in night mode, the OnePlus cameras hold up very well with respect to the competition. The Xiaomi and the X9 definitely performs better, but that also doesn't mean the OnePlus looks absolutely horrible. I guess you need to pause in a bit here in order to get a better look into all these image samples. I don't think I need to explain much here. The difference is pretty visible. Now I'm going to talk about one thing that I absolutely loved on the OnePlus cameras, and that is the portrait mode. I even mentioned this in the X9 camera review. This thing has got a really good edge detection. It can clearly separate out every hair sticking out. And I tried this in several different scenes. Like if you compare the results to the iPhone 17, it definitely is very impressive. Under not very favorable lighting, the perfection level definitely takes a hit, but the results are still pretty good. I also tried some of the soft light effects and filters with the portrait mode. Honestly, I did not like them. They look like cheap beauty filters. But yes, in some specific non-human scenes, they do look good. Okay, time for some selfies. The front camera here is good. There is autofocus, which means images are pretty sharp, but the strange part of Oppo's images having more background blur than OnePlus is solved now. I think the fixed focus on X9 is set to focus closer than expected in this scene, because both the phones have very similar sensor size and f-stops. I won't say Oppo looks blurry in any of the shots after all that processing and enhancements, but I will say the HDR processing is a bit harsher on the OnePlus and often creates this feathered glowing effect around very thin dark areas against light. They are not noticeable on Oppo. I think this extra processing takes a toll on the performance too. Like in a very rough ride, I got clearer images on my Oppo compared to the OnePlus, which strangely also had better dynamic range in almost all of the shots. And again, this does not make any sense. The X9, according to many sources, has got the IMX615 sensor, which is a downgrade compared to the IMX709 on the OnePlus. Okay, so I just want to give you a very basic idea of the current scene. And right now, the light is coming in from there. As you can see, there's a street lamp, and there is also some sort of celebration or something going on in the background. As you can see, there is some amount of light. So this is where I'm going to take all the selfies and I'm going to show you how they look. Judging from the view over here, definitely the Oppo is performing better, but even if I focus on my face and maybe increase the exposure, okay, it's not making any difference on the OnePlus. So this is how it looks. The 709 captures 60% more light and 35% less noise than the 615. But in the final output, do you really think it makes that big of a difference? I only think the OnePlus is like a tad bit better than the X9, but only in photos though. But what about video? In normal, no fancy HDR or computational bokeh stuff, with the direct sunlight hitting my face, it definitely looks the clearest on the X9, especially the shadows. But this is also because of the heavy face-first metering on Oppo, the exact reason why my face looks whiter in harsh scenes. OnePlus still keeps the background exposure in mind. Xiaomi performs the best in this scene, keeping everything properly lit. In very harsh scenes, I could even make out the sun. With HDR turned on, the X9 interestingly performs better. You can see the houses in the background look less overexposed than the OnePlus, while at the same time, my face looks clearer. They have excellent clarity, no visible drop in performance, and very natural colors. No idea why Xiaomi looks like this here, pretty weird. In the front camera background blur video, Xiaomi has got a lovely bokeh. The BBK phones have a Gaussian look in the background blur. They do not really look much like lens blur. The balanced exposure on the Xiaomi also looks good compared to the overexposed backgrounds in the other two phones. One thing to remember here is that Xiaomi is shooting at 1080p, whereas the other two phones are in 4K. So I'll try to give you some good idea of the sound performance in all of these phones. The Oppo comes with a sound focus feature, which I'm turning on right now. And there is a fair bit of background noise. I guess you can hear the plane flying by. I can't really see where it is, but definitely is there somewhere in the sky. It's not really visible. But yes, it is actually creating a lot of noise. And then there are the crows, birds and everything over here, which is also adding to the noise. But yeah, this will give you a fair idea how the sound performance is. I'm also turning off the sound focus feature, so this is how it sounds with the sound focus feature off, and the plane is gone, so the sound is much lesser right now. So I'll again turn it back on to give you a better idea how it performs with the sound focus feature on as well as off. In the back cameras, the OnePlus under good lighting performs really well. The main camera on the OnePlus is surprisingly clearer than the Oppo X9. Ultra-wide video also works very well. It is pretty good and definitely has got a clean output. I've got a lot of footage across all the phones. I don't know what to say here while showing the samples, so I'm just saying this to extend the time and also show the video samples that I've taken. You will also notice I'm cropping in each of the footage to give you a better idea. But there is still one place where you will start feeling limited. I will say OnePlus definitely has got that purple edge issue, especially in scenes where the sky is directly behind certain elements. It is not just OnePlus. If you look at the X9, it also has the same problem, but it is only limited to the ultra-wide camera. So on the X9, if you switch to the main camera, the problem just isn't there. If I compare such a footage with the one shot on my iPhone 17, none of these problems are there. The OnePlus supports 4K Dolby Vision video across all the cameras. It is very useful when you have got a HDR timeline, but yes, a little bit of stretching does make the purple edges very visible. So you need to strictly stick to a CST node, else it will just start looking bad. And talking about nodes and stuff, let us also talk about log footage. And I think this is exactly where the OnePlus falls short. The output quality from the log footage is not as sharp as the X9, even though both of them have very similar bit rates and are shooting at the same quality. Switching to the telephoto camera in one of the footage, the darker areas also look a bit too messy. Sometimes I also noticed weird glitches like these in the videos shot in log. I'm pretty sure there are still some software issues here. And by the way, if you're wondering about the LUT, I did some digging and it turns out it uses O-Log. It is listed on the OnePlus 15 product information page, but you need to climb down all of that marketing jargon to hunt, find and download it. Instead, you can download the same thing from Oppo's website. It is way more clean and both the LUTs are technically the same. There is literally no difference. The OnePlus can shoot up to 4K 120fps in O-Log, which is pretty impressive. Here are some sample shots for that. The main idea of shooting in log is to have the ability to push a footage in post for better dynamic range. And again, the same problem is here. The video shot on the OnePlus just falls apart. Look how noisy the darker areas look compared to the same video shot on the X9. Alternatively, you can also shoot in Dolby Vision HDR up to 4K 120fps. Also, here is a comparison with the Oppo X9. It is very easy to say that OnePlus has got more details, but if you focus on the subject of this shot and zoom in, notice how the fur is more detailed on the X9 compared to the OnePlus. Oh, and I also took some videos in 4K 120fps without Dolby Vision and O-Log and all those fancy stuff. So it is just 4K 120fps. For night video, I'm going to start by comparing with the Xiaomi, since it only supports the main camera in the night mode. Now, there was a small issue here. I ended up placing the OnePlus on the right side, and since this video honestly is taking forever to complete, I just flipped the two videos. Okay, moving on. The main camera compared to other 2025 flagships look pretty consistent. The only noticeable difference compared to the X9 is its lower shutter speed, precisely the reason why the moving light looks weird. It also explains why in more dynamic scenes, the X9 footage starts looking weird, but in static scenes, it also helps in maintaining slightly lower noise compared to the OnePlus. I think the iPhone still has got the best dynamic range. It is pretty impressive how it handles the very bright lights along with the darker areas. Switching to the ultra-wide, the OnePlus definitely looks like it failed to adjust the exposure properly. But when you tap on the subject to adjust it properly, you will notice that it overcompensates and makes everything darker. So you pretty much have to figure out the middle ground yourself. Also, the OnePlus does not look good when zoomed in. Oppo also isn't monumentally better. I think it is equally weird, just in a different way. iPhone again maintains impressive dynamic range and low noise, even though the processing results in sacrificing a lot of details. Switching to the telephoto camera, things look very good on both the phones. But venturing into the darker areas, the OnePlus starts looking very dark. And when you artificially increase the exposure in post, you will find out how weird it actually looks. Last but not the least is the cinematic video. Honestly, I did not get much time to test this with a human subject, which is the reason why I replaced my camera with a OnePlus. Actually, I didn't. I still have the camera running over there on the top. And I also have the Oppo X9 running along with the iPhone 17 running. And I'm monitoring all the footage on my phone in the iPhone 16 over here. Anyway, you be the judge here and find out how this thing performs compared to the other smartphones I own. I'm shooting at the maximum possible resolution in each of these phones, and because this is indoors and in a low light scene, it is also a great way to find out how far computational background blur has come in modern flagship standing at the very doorstep of 2026. I'll say each of these phones qualify as a very well secondary camera in my studio, especially the OnePlus. When I was setting it up, I was actually seeing the footage on my desktop over there because the screen is still shared, and it looked pretty good. But again, the final output might just be different. Okay, the shoot is done and it took precisely 45 minutes of continuous 4K 30 FPS recording, a part of which even had computational blur. There was a very mild heating on both the phones, provided it is winter now, but the interesting part is battery drop. Both the phones took exactly 11% of their batteries to shoot the entire thing, provided OnePlus here has got a chunkier battery pack. But the full story is, OnePlus for the entire shoot had been casting the screen to my Windows PC, which is a pretty battery demanding task. So yes, as expected, OnePlus is definitely going to outlast the Oppo X9 if you keep them both recording at high resolution. And that is all for today. But I still have one question to answer. Are the OnePlus 15 cameras really that bad? After the update and thorough testing, I will say absolutely not. Yes, this phone is pretty much targeted towards gamers, so it has got excellent processing power. And since image processing itself forms one of the most important aspects of a smartphone camera, a better processor also means better camera performance, until you take away the very strength that helps the phone perform better in order to try and take control in your own hands. If you don't really want that, you will be more than happy with the cameras. And again, that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Do like, share and subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one.